Minecraft was officially released on November 18th, 2011, when Notch pulled the lever at the first ever Minecon, pushing the game into version 1.0. And being the best-selling video game of all time, with 63 million more sales than GTA 5, Minecraft is a game that needs no introduction. And today, we're going to talk about the game's Iceberg. This is the ultimate Minecraft Iceberg. Created by Reddit user Legend Finder, this list includes over 300 entries as well as 9 individual tiers. Now, I assume that everyone who watches these kinds of videos are familiar with the Iceberg format, but if you aren't, all you really need to know is that the farther we go down, the less common the material on the iceberg is. And just like with the Mario video, the confidence meter is also going to be in this video, but instead of being stars, they're going to be hearts ranging from 0 to 5. So for example, if I'm 100% certain that what I'm talking about is accurate, then the meter will be at full, but if I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, the meter will be all the way down to 0. Another important thing I want to mention is that I'm not going to include layer 0 because these are just far too common to be relevant here. But now that you understand the basic structure of the video, let's dive into the iceberg. Creeper origins. When Notch was trying to make the model for a pig, he accidentally swapped the height and length values for the body, making the resulting mob taller than it was wide. This accidental model ended up inspiring Notch to make it into the creeper. Cave Game. Cave Game was the very first version of Minecraft, which only included grass and cobblestone blocks taken from Ruby Dung, which was a different game than Notch had made in the past. This version of the game was never released to the public, and was only shown off in videos which are censored in most countries for unknown reasons. Notch called this demo Cave Game because it was only intended to be a test demo for cave generation. Creepers are plants. There's a popular theory that surrounds the idea that creepers are actually plants, and that the reason they explode is to spread their spores. The official bestiary also reveals that creepers have the capacity to distribute spores as well, although it's contradictory, since the cross-section reveals a TNT block suggesting that they're artificial. The original texture for the creeper is also a heavily edited version of the leaf block. Female Ender Dragon. Upon defeating the Ender Dragon, the dragon drops an egg when killed. And I think it's safe to say that since the Ender Dragon drops an egg, it's definitely a female. Farlands. The Farlands is a wildly common terrain generation bug that starts at 12,550,821 blocks away from the spawn as a result of an overflow error from the fractal noise Minecraft uses to create terrain. There's multiple types of Farlands, but the original Farlands are by far the most popular of them all. Players can experience multiple other bugs at these high distances, ranging from jitteriness to passing through blocks. The Farlands were removed in Beta 1.8 due to a change in world generation, but in Bedrock Edition, the Farlands still existed all the way up until June of 2021, after which only the Stripe lands continued to exist beyond that. Tutorial Logo Nether Portal. The Legacy console editions of Minecraft contained several different tutorial worlds to help players learn the basics of the game. These worlds contained a giant Minecraft logo in the sky, and breaking into it often revealed a secret, ranging from a diamond-filled chest to an entire lit nether portal. Pink Sheep. Sheeps have an incredibly slim chance to spawn in 6 different colors: white, black, gray, light gray, brown, and pink. Pink is the rarest color, with pink sheeps only making up 0.164% of all sheep. A baby pink sheep is even more unlikely, with a natural spawn rate chance of 0.0082%. Name tag Easter eggs. When putting certain keywords onto a name tag, some names have very special and unique effects. Naming a mob Dinnerbone, or Grum, turns them upside down. Naming a mob Jeb gives sheep rainbow cycling wool, and the name Toast gives rabbits the appearance of Zyzen 420's girlfriend's missing rabbit. (2018) Cat Vote. In October of 2018, Mojang hosted a contest in which the community could submit pictures of their cats to potentially be able to have their skin in the official game. Submissions lasted from October 13th to November 12th, and the 3 finalists by the end were Coco, a calico cat, Zach, a sphinx cat, and Jelly, a white tabby domestic shorthair. The finalist poll was held on Twitter on November 16th, and Jelly won with 48.5 of the 56,000 votes. And as promised, Mojang added Jelly to the game on December 12th. Snapshot 20W14 Infinity. On April Fools of 2020, Mojang added a joke snapshot which added over 2 billion randomized dimensions that can be accessed by throwing a book with anything written on it into a nether portal. In addition, 44 Easter egg dimensions were also accessible if their respective words were written instead. Minecraft Plus. In April Fools of 2021, Mojang released a screensaver collection for Windows featuring Minecraft-themed versions of old screensavers that used to come with Windows computers. Minecraft 3D. Also referred to as 3D Shareware 134, this was a joke version of Minecraft for April Fool's Day of 2019 that referenced 90s shareware titles such as Doom. The most notable changes were default retro shaders, exploding barrels, cheat codes, and mobs being rendered in 2D. PCX textures. These textures refer to a joke texture pack that was made for April Fools of 2018 that replaced the default texture pack for the game. All of the blocks were compressed down to using only 8-bit colors, resulting in far less detail. Mine and Craft Digital Leisure Device. In April of 2017, Mojang showed off a fake retro handheld console for April Fools, which heavily resembled consoles like the Nintendo Game Boy. They honestly should have made this a real thing. 1RV Pre-1. Also known as the Trendy Update, this pre-release version of Minecraft was released on April Fool's Day in 2016, and the update added a bunch of technological features such as an ankle monitor that alerts the player if they're far away from the spawn, and a smarter watch that displayed the time as well as chat notifications for significant milestones. Reality vision goggles were also added, which is what the RV stands for in the version name. The goggles displayed a 3D minimap of the player's surroundings, and it replaced the text on signs with the word obey as a reference to the 1998 film They Live. Love and Hugs Update. This snapshot was a joke snapshot for Java Edition 1.10, releasing for April Fool's Day of 2015. When version 1.9 was being developed, instead of the player taking damage, a love meter would fill up, meaning that players were effectively unable to be killed. Several other friendliness-themed additions were added as well, like the Wither being pink, as well as the ability to play a game called Minesweeper if the player obtains 8 hearts of health. Minesweeper plays just like Minesweeper, with the only difference being the textures being replaced with Minecraft ones. TEA VSRP. For April Fools of 2014, Mojang released a villager-themed update called the Element Animation Villager Sounds Resource Pack. The update made Minecraft heavily villager-controlled, and all of the player skins were temporarily changed to be a villager mob as well. All sound effects were replaced with villager noises recorded by Element Animation, and the trailer for the update tells you all you need to know.
Grass, grass, gravel, 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 snow, 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 snow. And not forgetting about dig, dig, smash, break, grass, grass, chop. There's fun for the whole family.
Java Edition 2.0. In 2013, a pre-release for a fake 2.0 version of Minecraft was released to various YouTubers at the time, and the update contained very strange additions. Blocks included slabs of TNT called Ethos Slabs, referencing Ethos Lab, burnt out torches, redstone bugs, which are just red silverfish, and tinted glass, just to name some of the changes. Mince Raft. The title screen has a 1 in 10,000 chance of purposefully displaying Mince Raft instead of Minecraft. Dimension layers. Though it's never actually shown in the game, many people speculate that the Nether exists below the overworld due to its hellish feel and the existence of the Nether ceiling, and that the end is above it due to its theme of space. My voice might be a little shot because I just woke up, but the official Minecraft World Beyond poster art puts the dimensions in the respective order, and this led to even further speculation of this myth. I call this a myth because Dinnerbone debunked this theory in October of 2020 on Twitter. Infiniminer Inspiration. Infiniminer is an open source sandbox game released on April 29, 2009, which inspired Notch to create his own version about a month later. In the description for one of Notch's cave game videos on his old channel, he describes the cave game as an early test of an Infiniminer clone. Ancient Builders. This one is a very overarching theory that starts with an ancient civilization of builders, not too dissimilar from our own species in the real world. The theory suggests the idea that the naturally generated structures, like desert temples and jungle temples, are due to an ancient civilization of builders who sought to take over the Minecraft world as well as all of its dimensions. Upon reaching the Nether, for instance, whatever civilizations the piglins had were ultimately destroyed by these people, leaving nothing but ruined bastions behind. Eventually, however, it is believed that some ill threat brought them all first into hiding, and then either disappearing or going extinct entirely. But this is obviously nothing more than a theory. Feeding parrots cookies. When parrots were first added to the game, they were attracted to cookies as a reference to the famous phrase, "Polly wants a cracker." Cookies are obviously toxic to birds in real life, and if you fed one to a parrot in Minecraft, it would instantly kill the mob. Disc 11 and 13. Disc 11 is a broken music disc that has a way different approach from all of the other discs. If you somehow haven't heard it before, this is what it sounds like. The sound at the end is theorized to be from either an Enderman or simply a scratch on the disc. Disc 13 most likely contains the other half of the story, with sounds of arrows being fired, as well as a creeper explosion at the very end. Secret Igloo Basements. 50% of all of the igloos in the game have a trapdoor leading to a dungeon containing a tutorial on how to cure a zombified villager. The dungeon also contains another hidden room if you know where to dig. Cave chickens. It's possible to find chickens deep underground in caves. This is a result of zombie chicken jockeys spawning underground, with the chicken going into a 1-block gap and subsequently suffocating the baby zombie. Herobrine is Notch's brother. Herobrine has a very popular theory that states that Herobrine is actually the deceased brother of Notch, and that he somehow embedded himself inside of the game. The theory originated as a result of the original creator of Herobrine claiming to have found this information through an interview with Notch himself. It didn't take long for people to question the legitimacy of a pretty heinous statement, and when people asked Notch directly about the correlation, Notch immediately shut this theory down. Nether Reactor. Before Pocket Edition had an actual nether in it, in order to somewhat generate a nether, you had to create something called a nether reactor in order to generate a nether spire, which looks like this from the outside. The inside of the structure generated nether-related blocks, as well as zombie pigmen and glowing obsidian. Zoglin. When a hoglin enters any dimension that isn't the nether, the mob becomes a zombified mob called a zoglin. The zoglin attacks almost any entity, including armor stands, but the enemy won't attack things like creepers and other zoglins. This also happens to piglins when going into any other dimension. Sand speeds up sugarcanes? It is very commonly believed that sugarcane will grow faster on sand instead of dirt, but it actually grows at the exact same speed as dirt despite a pretty large stigma surrounding it. I've done this literally every single time I've played survival, and it honestly just feels right growing it with sand. Education Edition. Initially released in November of 2016, the Education Edition of Minecraft is a version intended for educational use only. The version contains a lot of content not present in other versions, like cameras, chalkboards, programmable agents, and several other things. A lot of the features were intended to be exclusive to this version, but 2 months before its release in August, the features were accidentally added in 0.16.0 Pocket Edition in Alpha Build 1, but was ultimately removed pretty quickly. This is actually a super interesting build of Minecraft, and there's so many features that I could sit here for over an hour and a half talking about it. Ores near gravel? Many people have reported seeing ores like iron and coal generating more frequently near pockets of gravel. The most likely explanation for this is that since gravel sticks out amongst stone and is easier to dig out, one might be more likely to clear out a pocket of gravel rather than any random patch of stone, thus finding more ores inside of the pockets. Hermaphrodite mobs. Minecraft animals often have traits from both sexes in the same texture. Cows have horns and udders, chickens have red wattles like a rooster but lay eggs like a hen, and Steve was also supposed to be a genderless human, even though their skin has a beard, and Alex was later added as a female variant to Steve. Abandoned villages. In Java Edition, abandoned villages, also known as zombie villages, have a 2% chance of generating, with cobwebs, missing doors, and zombie villagers in the place of actual ones. In Bedrock Edition, this percentage seems to be 25 to 30%. Tower of Pimps. The Tower of Pimps is a tower of 4 gold blocks on top of an obsidian block, created by Gavin Free in Achievement Hunter's Let's Play Minecraft series. The tower was referenced in a tutorial world on the Xbox 360 version of the game.
Drop down, you might see her right there.
Fuck
Boom!
me!
There's a
Holy
Tower of
shit.
Pimps.
I can't
That
believe
is amazing.
I
It's
can't
right
believe
there.
it's in the game.
That is
I'm so
good
excited.
No
Lord.
cuts, nothing. It is
This
right
is way,
there.
it's always cool when they like name an achievement.
Pack.png. The default icon for resource packs is this image of a hill on a random Minecraft world. Sal C1 popularized the search for the seed this hill is taken from, and a massive community hunt began in January of 2020. Somebody eventually ended up writing a script that scanned through every possible world seed, which for the version was 2 to the power of 48, in order to find the world seed. But the issue was that in order to go through all of the seeds, the program would have to be up for years and years, and this is where Minecraft at Home comes in. By using a program called Boink, people could use multiple computers from anywhere in the world to contribute their computing power towards one specific project, instead of one person's computer power being used to sift through this massive amount of seeds. At its peak, there were over 3,500 people contributing their computer's resources to the program, and it surprisingly only took the community 9 months to find the exact seed of the image. And this is the seed. Rubies. Showed off by Jeb on Twitter in 2012, in the snapshots for 1.3.1, emeralds were originally intended to be rubies, but it was quickly changed to a greener emerald texture, probably because Mojang didn't want something too similar to redstone. Nether portals were made for Endermen. Nether portals are 3 blocks high instead of 2, and one of the only 3 block high mobs in the game is the Enderman. Since Endermen have a black and purple color scheme, as well as having the ability to teleport, it makes sense that nether portals may have originally been designed with Endermen in mind. This could also be why the Warped Forest seems to have so many of them. Void below Overworld. I don't get why this one is so far down, but the void is an obvious result of a video game having a boundary, and in Minecraft's case, that boundary is just the void. The only reason that it has to exist is that Minecraft's worlds can really only go down so far. Enchantment font. The font used for the enchanting table is the standard galactic alphabet, but a lot of the actual phrases themselves are complete nonsense. The words are taken randomly from the following set of words, if you can even call some of these words. I thought about just saying them out loud, but that would get a little redundant, so I'm just going to show them on the screen instead. 10-year anniversary event. On May 17th, 2019, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the game, Mojang released a web browser version of Minecraft Classic, gave discounts to modern Minecraft, and released a commemorative 10th anniversary map with several secrets, including a book that is actually signed by Herobrine. For the 3 days following the anniversary, cakes had the number 10 placed onto them in celebration. I don't just want to skip over this entry just yet, because as someone who's built things like this is just unbelievable. Like, seriously, this is, oh my god, man. I have so much respect for this map. Just every little detail, every nook and cranny, like, it's... wow, man. Just go check it out for yourself, seriously. Fluid interactions. Lava and water mix in different ways depending on how they're positioned. Water flowing onto or touching a lava source block will replace the lava with obsidian, which is actually taken advantage of in older speedrunning strategies, and lava flowing vertically onto water will turn the water into stone, whereas lava flowing horizontally will turn it into cobblestone instead. This horizontal lava flow is used to create cobblestone generators, most commonly used in survival challenges like Skyblock, where there is literally no other way to get stone unless you use a generator. Additionally, if lava flows over soul soil and is adjacent to blue ice, the lava will turn into basalt. Zombie villager conversion. Like we mentioned earlier with the igloos, players can cure a zombie villager by feeding it a golden apple while it's under the effects of weakness. The conversion time can take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. Cured villagers can have considerable discounts on their trades as a way of saying thanks. This can be heavily exploited to get really good trades from the villagers. Mob lightning conversion. When struck by lightning, villagers become witches, creepers become charged creepers, pigs become zombie piglins, and mushrooms switch between red and brown variants. Skeleton horse traps. Even though there's not a storm in the footage I'm showing, during a thunderstorm, it's possible to get a very rare event in which only a single skeleton will spawn, but if you go up to the horse, lightning will strike the horse and 4 other horsemen will spawn. Title screen world. This one is similar to pack.png in that Minecraft's title screen world in the background in the pre-1.13 title screen comes from an existing seed, and the Minecraft at Home project was also able to find this one, and these 2 seeds both work to play on the actual title screen world. And after the world was found, all of the other title screen seeds from 1.13 to 1.16 were discovered and compiled into a spreadsheet, also courtesy of Minecraft at Home. Swamp and jungle villagers. Even though jungle and swamp villages don't generate naturally, villagers have their own special skins for those biomes, which can only be seen via spawn eggs, breeding, or curing a zombie villager. Not really sure why swamp and jungle villages were never implemented, though it does kind of make a little bit of sense. Illusioners. The Illusioner is an unused illager that can only be spawned by using the summon command. It mainly uses a bow to attack, but it can also use a blindness spell, as well as a spell that spawns multiple copies of himself. Killer Rabbit. For only a couple of snapshots in 1.8, the Killer Rabbit was added as a naturally spawning mob with a 1 in 1,000 chance of spawning. It was later changed to be a 1 in 2,500 chance, before only being able to be spawned using this command. Creepers spread potions. If a creeper is affected by a potion, often through a splash potion, then their explosion will create a lingering potion effect cloud in its wake that can affect other entities around it. Secret languages. Minecraft has 6 Easter egg languages inside of the settings: Pirate Speak, Lolcat, Shakespearean English, Anglish, Upside Down English, and Pre-Revolutionary Russian. There's also 4 other Khan languages, including Star Trek's Klingon language, a Lord of the Rings Elvish language, Esperanto, and, excuse my pronunciation, Lauschbahn. Sky Dimension. Minecraft Beta 1.8 initially had a planned sky dimension intended to be the opposite of the Nether both thematically and in terms of terrain. The dimension was later scrapped and was later replaced with the end instead. Dead mobs form skulk. Mobs killed around a 9-block radius of a skulk catalyst create a patch of skulk and skulk veins where they died, suggesting that these blocks are the direct result of dead mobs. Painting origins. 25 of the paintings found in Minecraft are actually edited versions of real paintings by Christopher Zetterstrand. The Minecraft versions of the paintings were also created by him, and the Wither painting is the only completely original painting in the game. Zetterstrand actually recently posted on Twitter about the paintings and has answered a lot of questions that people had, and I find it to be seriously awesome. Chick quadruplets. There is a 1 in 256 chance for a thrown egg to spawn 4 baby chickens instead of just 1. Order of the Stone. After the creation of Cave Game, Notch decided to rename the game to Minecraft Order of the Stone as a reference to the webcomic Order of the Stick. Notch eventually shortened the title to just Minecraft, and the original name served as the inspiration for the group of ancient builders in Minecraft story mode with the same name. Ghast sound origins. Have you ever wondered what the origin of the ghast crying sound is? Well, in December of 2011, during a Reddit AMA, C418 confirmed that the sound of the ghast's cries are actually a recording of his pet cat, which makes the noise when disturbed. Removed splashes. A splash in this context refers to the random text that you can get on the title screen of the game, and throughout Minecraft's history, several of these title messages have been removed out of the game. Some examples include a splash saying "better than Prey" being removed after the release of Bethesda's Prey, a splash referencing Minecraft forums since their website announced they were shutting down, and every splash text referring to Notch were all removed after he left the Minecraft team. Zombified Piglin Greenblood. When zombie pigmen were first created by a player named Zophobia, the mob originally had red blood, but was later changed to be green since Notch found red blood to be a little too gory. The Flattening. The flattening refers to a major change in Java version 1.13 that affected several technical aspects of the game, including modifying IDs, block states, and NBT data. The biggest change is the removal of numerical IDs, because not only does this make referencing objects in the game much easier since you don't have to memorize numerical data tags for items, but it also removed the hard limit on how many things Mojang could add to the game. This was only done in Java Edition, and in fact, them hitting this limit for blocks in 1.12 is mainly the reason why the flattening occurred in the first place. Brown Mushroom. We kinda mentioned this earlier, but mushroom cows are already rare mobs as it is, but there's actually an even more uncommon variant of the mob, and when a normal mushroom cow gets struck by lightning, it creates a brown mushroom instead. It also has a 1 in 1,024 chance of being created through breeding 2 normal mushroom cows. Tutorial World Stampy Island. On an island found to the northeast of the world in Title Update 12 of the Legacy Console Edition, an entire recreation of Stampy's house as well as the SS Stumpy from Stampy's Lovely World can be found. Nether Chicken Jockey. A baby zombie piglin has a 5% chance of riding a chicken when spawned, meaning each zombie piglin spawned has a mere 0.25% chance of becoming a chicken jockey. This is the only way that chickens can spawn naturally in the Nether. Turtles drop bowls. Yes, you heard that right. If a turtle is killed by lightning, it will drop 1 bowl, and I have absolutely no idea why. Netherrack is made of flesh. This is a pretty interesting theory that suggests that netherrack is actually made up of flesh, and seeing how much it looks like muscle tissue, as well as the fact that the nether is already a pretty hellish dimension, it's not the most unlikely thing. This theory is even further evident with the original name for netherrack being bloodstone, so think of that as you will. In Bedrock Infiniburn. Unlike netherrack, which can burn infinitely in all 3 dimensions, Bedrock only has the ability to infinitely burn in the end. This was most likely done to stop the fire generated from the end crystals to go out once the crystals were destroyed. Locked Chest. There was a feature added on April Fool's Day in 2011 that required a Steve Co. supply crate key in order to open a chest. This was a reference to TF2's Manco supply crates, and buying these keys required going to a fake Minecraft store, which was riddled with several more Easter eggs, including a velociraptor at checkout, as well as a seizure-inducing window if you bought more than $10,000 worth of goods. Gears. Gears were intended to be an item used in mechanisms much like redstone, but it was never given any functionality. They had the ability to be placed on walls, but it only existed from Indev 0.31 to Alpha version 1.0.1 when Redstone Dust was added. Herobrine Shrine. This one doesn't really make any sense being this low, but Herobrine Shrines are a very well-known structure that players could make out of a block of lit netherrack surrounded by redstone torches and gold blocks. The structures were supposedly capable of summoning Herobrine. How did we get here? One of the most famous advancements in Minecraft is one that requires you to have every obtainable status effect applied to you at the exact same time. appropriately named How Did We Get Here. This list includes having absorption, bad omen, blindness, conduit power, dolphin's grace, fire resistance, glowing, haste, hero of the village, hunger, invisibility, jump boost, levitation, mining fatigue, nausea, night vision, poison, regeneration resistance, slow falling, slowness, speed, strength, water breathing, weakness, and wither. Endermen are Farlanders. On July 30th, 2011, people on 4chan started petitioning for Endermen to be renamed to Farlanders instead, as a reference to the Farlands. Notch then joked that instead of calling Endermen Farlanders, the Farlands could be renamed to the End instead. This joke from Notch is actually how the name For the End came to be. The Farlanders mod added on to this, saying that their story proposed that Endermen used to live peacefully in the Farlands before it was taken from them, forcing the inhabitants to trek across dimensions seeking shelter before eventually settling in the End. Super Duper Graphics. In E3 of 2017, the Super Duper Graphics Pack was announced. Boasting 4K HDR graphics, improved lighting, shadows, water effects, and more, it was primarily geared towards non-Java platforms that didn't have the same freedom of shaders or resource packs, and on August 12, 2019, Mojang announced that the pack would be ceasing development, citing that it was too ambitious and technically demanding to implement properly. Earlier that year, testing for a new Bedrock rendering engine was underway. Dubbed Render Dragon, which is a really cool name by the way, it successfully implemented new lighting techniques, performance upgrades, and even ray tracing support, bringing in all of the features that were once promised for Super Duper graphics all those years ago. Abnormal Cacti. Minecraft at Home, the volunteer project that found the seeds for pack.png and the pre-1.13 title screen world, is also responsible for tracking down the tallest cactus possible in Minecraft. As of July 3rd, 2020, they have found a 22 block tall cactus in a normal world and a 24 block tall one in a super flat. The reason why Minecraft cacti can grow so tall despite only naturally growing to a height of 3 blocks is because these aren't technically one single cactus. Minecraft generation can often put multiple cacti on top of one another, leading to some incredibly rare 3+ block tall cacti. This can also be the case with sugarcanes. In fact, due to valid natural generation locations for sugarcane being far less than cacti, abnormally tall sugarcanes occur more frequently than for cacti. Story Mode Discontinuation. Minecraft Story Mode is an episodic series released by Telltale Games. Season 1 was released on October 13th, 2015, with 8 episodes in all, while Season 2 was released on July 11th, 2017, with 5 episodes. Financial troubles and a lack of major investors to fund projects meant that Telltale Games went through severe employee layoffs and studio closures on September 21st, 2018, with the company officially going defunct on October 11th of that year. On May 31st, 2019, Minecraft staff announced that Minecraft Story Mode will soon stop being published due to the publisher no longer having the license to sell or distribute the series. Story Mode was discontinued for good on June 25th. Fire Chainmail. Chainmail armor can only be obtained through trading with villagers or from a rare mob drop in which the mob is wearing chainmail, but until 1.8, there was a creative-only recipe for it by putting fire blocks in a crafting table. Johnny. Renaming a Vindicator to Johnny causes it to attack every mob in sight with the exception of ghasts and other illagers. This is a reference to the iconic scene from The Shining where Jack Torrance chops down a door with an axe. Red Dragon. The Red Dragon was a mob that Notch intended to release alongside the Ender Dragon as an overworld boss, but the boss was never implemented into the game. Dinnerbone has talked about the dragon in the past, saying in 2013 that it was never promised and that there aren't any plans to add it anytime soon. Stunned Enderman. If you continue to stare at an Enderman, even after they've become angered, they'll temporarily lose the ability to move or teleport, making them a little easier to attack. Zombie Horses. Zombie horses are an unused zombie variant of the horse that was added in Update 1.6.1 at the same time as the regular ones. Much like the skeleton horses, zombie horses don't drown underwater, and this is probably due to them being dead. Flying machines. Flying machines refer to redstone mechanisms that use pistons, slime blocks, and redstone blocks in order to create a structure that can move across the sky indefinitely. One of the most common engines used involves having a regular piston push the structure forward, then having a sticky piston push a slime block backwards in order to retrieve the piston and then start the cycle all over again through the use of redstone blocks. There's a lot of different types of machines that work this way, and this entry is just a generalization of that. Floating grass. Ever since the addition of one-block grass in Beta 1.6, grass could often be found in the world floating in midair or on blocks other than grass as a result of generating before natural features such as lakes could perforate the world. This bug was fixed on May 19, 2021. Luck Potion. Did you even know this existed? The Luck Potion is a potion that gives you the luck status effect, which increases your chances of getting better items from loot tables that use a quality score. So far, only fishing gives loot items this score, and a Luck of the Sea fishing rod passively increases a player's luck when it's in use. Green Steve. This is a somewhat popular creepypasta that involves a green version of Steve attacking a player in a desert temple after they noticed the TNT trap didn't go off. According to the story, a developer snuck Green Steve into the game against the refusal of other devs. The Green Steve creepypasta led to a few spin-offs, including Red Steve and Blue Steve. I've been playing Minecraft for as long as I can remember, and I have never heard of this. Missing texture block. In Java Edition, when the game detects a block with an invalid ID, which is often caused by a result of switching between versions where blocks were removed or have yet to be added, their texture is replaced with a purple and black checkerboard pattern. Prior to Java 1.6.1, the missing texture block was simply white with black text that said missing texture. In Bedrock Edition, blocks are instead replaced by the info update block, which is a dirt block with the word update written on all 6 sides. Item duplication. Minecraft has had multiple item duplication glitches in its history, the most famous of which included placing a door next to a cactus on top of a block of sand in order to duplicate the door, and placing an item into a chest, then taking them out, and then completely exiting out of the game without saving in order to get double of what you took out, just to name 2 of them. There's a really good video by Shulkercraft on this, and I'm sure a good amount of the glitches still work without fail. Nether ceiling. The nether ceiling is a flat expanse of land located just above the bedrock ceiling of the nether. Though you can't break the bedrock directly, you can phase through the ceiling by throwing an ender pearl into a small gap or a stair block, or pushing a minecart via piston into the ceiling. The lack of obstacles above the ceiling make it a great way for players to cross huge distances easily, since 1 block travel to the nether is 8 blocks in the overworld. Wololo. Evokers have an Easter egg that causes them to change the color of blue sheeps to red by shouting Wololo. This is a reference to the priest conversion ability in Age of Empires, which allowed their army to gain control of an opponent's unit, thus having them switch sides. Enchanted Golden Apple Recipe. When regular golden apples were first introduced on January 27, 2010, they could be crafted with an apple surrounded by 8 gold blocks and gave fairly strong buffs. In Java 1.1, they were nerfed significantly and only required 8 gold nuggets to craft instead. In response, enchanted golden apples were added in 1.3.1, having the original crafting recipe of 8 gold blocks, but giving far stronger effects as a result. As part of the combat update in 1.9, enchanted golden apples were made uncraftable, meaning the only way to obtain them now are to find them naturally in structure chests anywhere throughout the world. Mushroom light. Brown mushrooms, as well as dragon eggs, emit a small light level of 1, becoming a light source in Indev version 0.31. Additionally, blue ice originally gave off a light level of 4 in Bedrock version 1.4, although this was removed in version 1.17.10. Testificates. For a brief time in Beta 1.9's pre-release, when villagers were added, they all had the name Testificate above their heads. Post-apocalyptic future. This entry is referring to a theory that Steve is the sole survivor in a mutated wasteland, hence why there's so many undead creatures prowling the landscape. Villagers are probably also mutants, forced to rebuild civilization from scratch after all technology was wiped out. The Planet Minecraft post from 2015 goes way more into the specifics of this, but I'm gonna move on. Raspberry Pi Edition. The Raspberry Pi is a very small computer, mainly used for computer science and programming. Mojang released a free version of Minecraft for it, with only a limited number of features since it's based on the Alpha Pocket Edition versions, as well as the player's name permanently being Steve Pi. This version also comes with a Python programming interface, allowing players to add their own code to manipulate the game. This also meant that players could just edit their name in the executable to something other than Steve Pi. Wax Block. The Wax Block was a texture added to the game files for 1.15 during a snapshot released on August 22, 2019, along with the texture for an item called Crystallized Honey. Both were removed on October 16th, with developers claiming that they were occasionally added to the game files and never intended to be used. Waxing as a concept, especially when it comes to copper objects, was taken up by the honeycomb items instead. Quiver. The quiver is an unused item that could have been used to store multiple stacks of arrows in one inventory slot. Only the texture for the item existed, and even that was removed with the 1.9 combat update. Super secret settings. Up until 1.9, there used to be a button in the options menu that allowed you to toggle between 24 different types of filters. It's uncertain why this was removed, and I actually remember messing around with it the day that it came out. Minicraft. Minicraft was a 2D top-down version of Minecraft that Notch created in 2 days for the Ludum Dare competition in 2011. And from what I can tell, the game looks like it might take some light inspiration from Earthbound for the Super Nintendo. Thanks, Zophobia. I mentioned earlier that zombie pigmen were originally created by a player named Zophobia, and this entry directly ties back to that. In the old zombie pigmen texture file, Mojang added text to it that says, "Thanks, Zophobia," who was responsible for the creation of the mob. This isn't too dissimilar to how the textures for the Guardian and Elder Guardian secretly hid the word Jeb as well. Unfortunately though, most of these subtle nods were removed from the textures following Update 1.14's texture changes. The ones that still remained were the signatures for Jappa and Sarge in the texture of the armor stands. Notch drops apples. From version InDev up until 1.3.1, any player who had the name Notch would drop an apple when being killed. This was also before you could naturally obtain apples, so back then, killing a player named Notch was the only way to obtain them. Undead Giants. Giants were an unused mob that were essentially a 12-block high zombie. I'm also again not really sure why this one is so low since I thought this was fairly common knowledge, but it is a pretty interesting piece of trivia. Removed biomes. There have been quite a lot of biomes removed from many different versions of the game. A lot of these biomes still exist in versions like Bedrock Edition, but just simply go unused instead of being completely removed from the game. It's also worth noting that ice deserts were implemented into the game's code, but it wasn't properly added into the rainfall table, thus making it unable to generate anywhere in a world. Baby riding zombies. In Bedrock Edition, baby zombies can ride far more mobs than just chickens, ranging from mobs like pigs and even mushroom cows. It's also pretty cool that if the mount they were initially riding gets killed, they're able to seek out a new mount to ride. Zombies drop feathers. From the beginning of InDev in February 2010, all the way to September 2011, zombies would only drop feathers when they were killed. The reasoning for this was that Notch not only didn't know what items a zombie should drop, but chickens as a mob weren't added until July 30th, 2010. Endermites are parasites. Ender pearls may not be Enderman eyes, but rather the eggs from which Endermite larvae hatch, hence why pearls have a small chance of spawning them when thrown. And these Endermites may have infected humans traveling to the end for the first time, leading to the corrupted Endermen that they are today. Mobs afraid of cats. If you've played Minecraft enough, then you'd know that mobs like creepers are deathly afraid of cats. And as for the reasoning, well, I have no idea. There are many interesting theories about it, with probably the most accepted theory being that since the creepers were created in the desert temple, people have connected that to the same reason why ancient Egyptians worshipped cats as protectors, and that they knew how to scare away anything evil, and in this case, that would be creepers. Unused pigmen. Before villagers existed, a player named McCleary suggested using pigmen as a substitute for villagers. Notch liked the idea, and later gave McLeay a one-of-one bacon cape for his idea, but the cape was later removed after many other people begged to have their own cape as well. McLee is the only Minecraft player in history to have had a 1-of-1 cape granted and then removed. Meta INF. Meta INF is a security measure that was added into Minecraft to ensure that everything in the files is how it should be to prevent any form of tampering. If you wanted to make a mod for the game, you have to delete this out of the game files first. Many mod loaders like Forge and Fabric go ahead and delete this file for you. Gargamel. Gargamel is a seed that existed from beta 1.3 all the way up to release 1.7.2, containing massive valleys and mountains at the spawn. The name of the seed is a reference to the villain from the Smurfs, and it became incredibly popular for its incredible terrain, which couldn't really be found this close to spawn in any other seeds. Enderman speech. Enderman voice clips are actually distorted and reversed versions of hi, hello, what's up, what the, and look for the eye. I really wasn't ready for how much this changed the way I heard Enderman, and you won't be able to unhear it after I play the audio. Legacy Console Ruins. In the 1.13 Legacy Console Aquatic Tutorial world, if you go underneath the icebergs, you will find the ruins of a previous tutorial world where you can find a secret chest with a music disc. Null. Null is a pretty ominous creepypasta that claims that Herobrine is actually someone trying to warn players about a much more dangerous threat, which is a pure black entity named Null. 3D Anaglyph. There used to be an option that applied a red and blue 3D filter to the screen, allowing you to effectively play with 3D glasses on. The feature was removed in update 1.13, but if any of you guys watching this happen to have any 3D glasses lying around, please let me know if this actually works or not. Crashlog Easter eggs. At the top of crash reports generated by the game, a variety of Easter egg comments can be found, and the message that's displayed is based on the system time in nanoseconds in which the crash occurred. MD3 models. MD3 is a model format that was originally going to be used in Minecraft, and existing models included Beast Boy, Steve, Black Steve, and Reyna, all created by former Mojang artist Doc to use as a test during InDev. Models from the game Quake were also used, since they had the MD3 format as well. After Doc left, the models were scrapped, along with an unused Minecraft logo concept he made which looked like this. Minecon 2014. Being initially announced on March 30th, 2014, on August 21st, Mojang stated that Minecon 2014 would be cancelled for unknown reasons and would instead take place in 2015, which it later did in July. Missing no splash. If you delete every line of text in the splashes.txt file, the splash reverts to missing no. This was removed in modern versions though, and replaced with a zero width no break space instead. Mob perspective filters. In spectator mode, players have the ability to see through the eyes of entities, and certain mobs can apply filters to your screen while being looked through. An Enderman's vision inverts and slightly desaturates colors, creepers have a green tint, and spiders have 5 screens where each of their eyes would be. Void fog. Void fog would decrease the distance that you could see, getting thicker the further down you went, starting at Y level 17. The fog was later removed though due to performance issues. Arbalistic. Arbalistic is a hidden achievement that requires you to shoot 5 unique mobs with a single crossbow shot, and if done right, then you will get the hidden achievement. Axolotl Wardens. Inverting the colors of the warden gives them light pink skin and dark pink horns, almost exactly the color scheme used for the axolotls. Nautiluses are extinct. Only nautilus shells exist, but not nautiluses themselves. Where are they? Since nautilus shells create powerful underwater conduits when combined with the heart of the sea, it's possible that these animals were hunted to extinction by an earlier civilization as a result. Villager eye colors. Whereas most villagers and illagers have green eyes, vindicators have blue eyes while witches have purple eyes. Grassless dirt. The original version of coarse dirt that was added in 1.7.2 shared the exact same texture file as the regular dirt block. The block generated in mutated savanna biomes, and grassless dirt was later replaced with coarse dirt in Update 1.8. Pre-activated ender portals. Each end portal frame has a 10% chance of already having an Eye of Ender inserted into the frame. With 12 frames in all, that means that each portal room has a 1 in a trillion chance of spawning with all 12 eyes in, thus activating it without the player having to do anything. Brick pyramids. To experiment with structure generation, a 32-block high pyramid was added in ImpDev. These massive structures spawned at the same coordinates every time, no matter what the seed of the world was. Disk 11 spectrogram. Putting the audio of Disk 11 into a spectrogram reveals an image of Steve's head, as well as the number 12418. The number is C418's signature, since the letter C in hexadecimal is 12. Cave 14. Much like Disk 11, Cave 14 also has an image when put into a spectrogram, and instead of being Steve's head, it's the iconic creeper face. Endermen are corrupted humans. There's an ongoing theory that states that the reason that humans don't exist in the Minecraft world is because they've all been turned into Endermen. The Enderman's speech being English helps back the theory up, but exactly how they became Endermen is a whole other question. Monoliths. Monoliths are a fairly well-known terrain glitch from ImpDev due to a bug with the Perlin noise generator that caused huge pillars of terrain to stretch all the way to the height limit. PC Gamer Demo. The PC Gamer Demo was a version of Minecraft Beta 1.3 that was found in the June 2011 version of PC Gamer magazine. The demo was 5 days long, and special features included a giant wool PC Gamer logo, a bonus chest, a secret chest underneath spawn containing 22 gunpowder, and cow textures having the PC Gamer logo on them. There was also a bug that allowed the player to bypass the time limit by going at or above Y89 in the world. Moon phase effects. Certain phases of the moon can have subtle effects on mobs. The frequency of slime spawning in swamps is proportional to how much of the moon can be seen, so a new moon spawns no slimes, but a full moon makes them spawn the most frequently. A fuller moon also increases the chances for skeletons and zombies to pick up items and spawn with weapons and armor, as well as increasing the chances for spiders to spawn with status effects such as invisibility. And 50% of all cats spawned during a full moon will be black cats. More end dragons existed. Although the current Ender Dragon is the last one of its kind by the time the player gets to the end, the existence of dragon heads on end ships suggests that there were once more dragons throughout the dimension that were gradually hunted to near extinction by an ancient civilization. The end crystals healing one of the potential last Ender Dragons could also be a last-ditch effort to keep the species alive. Ender Dragon enslaved Endermen. This one is kind of a stretch, but this theory claims that the Ender Dragon is a ruthless dictator rather than the leader of the Endermen. For one, the end initially doesn't have an exit. One can enter the end, but until the dragon is defeated, they can't leave, forcing them to die or potentially become turned into an Enderman themselves. Another thing is that Endermen originally had green eyes before being changed to purple, so one could argue that an endgame reason for the change is due to the Ender Dragon mind-controlling the Enderman, since the dragon was implemented into the game exactly 1 month after the color change. The nail in the coffin for some people is that defeating the dragon grants you the advancement called Free the End, which is yet another piece of evidence to suggest that Endermen were enslaved under the dragon's rule. It's likely that the help sounds in the Warped Forest are the result of Endermen that have somehow escaped the end, but this is still nothing more than just a theory. Monsters under your bed. Before Minecraft 1.0, there was a chance for a mob to suddenly spawn and wake you up before the night was over if your bed was in an unlit area. This gave the impression that the monster popping out from under your bed was intentional, and it actually was, and Notch even joked about this happening. Rabbits scared Ravagers. When Ravagers were first introduced, they would run away from any rabbits. This feature was removed in the next snapshot, and Wardens were initially proposed as being the exact opposite, attempting to befriend rabbits instead, although this idea was never implemented. Human goat screams. In a video released on the official Minecraft channel, it was revealed that the goat noises heard in the game are a 50-50 mix of real goats and human voices.
Anyway, we had 2 choices to get our in-game goat screams. We could record real goats screaming by telling them some bad news. Or we could get something called a Who-Man to record them.
Pretty sure those are screams of joy.
We decided to go with both, so you'll find a 50-50 mix of Who-Man and genuine goat screams in Minecraft.
Ridiculous.
Clay diamond trick. On roughly 80 to 85% of seeds, clay patches in bodies of water will be reliably linked to diamond ore generation based on a Z offset depending on the biome. The offset wraps around the same chunk boundary, so if it's about to cross into a new chunk, it'll simply continue on the opposite side of the chunk it's in to prevent that. Gravel in any biome can also be an indicator of diamonds in about 75% of seeds, and going roughly 14 blocks south yields diamonds 75% of the time in the seeds that have it. There's also a lapis trick in which going roughly 4 blocks north of a vein of lapis can have a reliably consistent patch of diamonds right underneath it. Giant fossil origins. Underneath desert and mesa biomes, as well as soul sand valleys in the nether, you can find giant rib cages of bones. These may have once belonged to dinosaurs, or some other giant beast they used to roam the Minecraft world, but I think that it's merely thematic. Legacy Frozen Ocean. The Frozen Ocean is a long-removed biome which literally was just an ocean with a sheet of flat ice on the top. And while it's currently unused in Bedrock Edition, it once existed in Pocket Edition Alpha from the very first release all the way back to June of 2014. Quantum chests. A single chest block can store 27 stacks of items, totaling to 1,728 different things, and realistically, this is completely illogical. A chest can store several stacks of blocks inside of it despite only being the size of a single block, and the only explanation for this is that all chests lead to some sort of finite quantum space. Ender chests may have been a result of earlier civilizations discovering this and exploiting it to have chests share the same quantum spaces. Asteroid belt. Seeing how there's chunks of rock floating on an endless void, there's a good chance that the end takes place somewhere on an asteroid belt. If it is in space though, why doesn't Steve run out of air? Old stonecutter. In January of 2013, a stonecutter block was added to Pocket Edition as a way to craft stone-type blocks that couldn't be made with a crafting table. The block took over 2 years to be rendered obsolete, being fully removed on November 2nd, 2015. Removed potion types. Before 1.9, potions used to have a form known as reverted, which brought a potion back to a weaker form. Adding glowstone dust to a few extended potions removed their extended times, whereas adding redstone dust to a few enhanced potions stripped them of their stronger effects. Reverted potions were removed on July 29, 2015. Damage tilt is broken. Every time the player is hit in the game, the camera tilts to the left, and believe it or not, this is actually not intended whatsoever. The camera is supposed to always tilt away from the direction that the player took damage, and the current system is the result of a bug introduced all the way back in 1.2.5. Gene. In October of 2011, when asked about the Ender Dragon's name, Notch replied with, "Gene?" Much like how he came up with Steve. Cave ambience crash sounds. While some of the cave ambience are things like steam being released and sounds of whistling, Sound 18 stands out in that it seems to sound like 2 minecarts ramming into each other, and one of the carts derailing and falling. Maybe I'm just tired, but I don't really hear it that way. Flying squids. In Beta 1.2, while the velocity of a squid is supposed to stop once it reaches the surface of the water, a bug in the squid's code when it was first released meant that the squid could just keep going upwards, eventually swimming into the air. The fix that Mojang kept for a very long time made it so that squids were prevented from swimming upwards completely, leading to each squid eventually gathering near the bottoms of lakes and oceans. And in Update 1.8, the squids were fixed entirely. Woodland Mansion Cult. Secret rooms in the Woodland Mansion contain idols, a meeting room with a map, jail cells, and a fake end portal, indicating that the Illagers have some sort of ultimate goal behind the scenes. There's also a room full of light and dark blue wool, which are the same colors as Steve's clothes. Horse armor recipe. For just 2 snapshots in 1.6.1, horse armor could be crafted by surrounding 6 ingots around a block of wool. It's unknown why these recipes were removed, though one reason could be that horse armor doesn't break, so it'd fit better as a loot chest item rather than being able to be made. Ghasts firing at the camera. Prior to Beta 1.7, Ghasts could actually shoot fireballs at the camera instead of the player, allowing one to easily avoid their attack by simply going into third person. Ancient debris is fossilized trees. The texture for ancient debris seems to have a bark on the sides and rings on top, suggesting that it may have been the fossilized remains of some durable species of ancient trees. The texture could also simply be pillar blocks from a long-forgotten building made entirely of netherite. Squid milking. In Beta 1.2 to 1.4, squids could be milked with an empty bucket just like how you can do with a cow. Guardians are mechanical. There's a lot of things that suggest that guardians were most likely created by some other species. They have retractable spikes that make them seem like sea mines, they're made of prismarine, they shoot lasers from their eyes, and their only purpose is to guard the ocean monuments. The same species that created the guardians likely also created the monuments, and furthermore, the bestiary seems to confirm that guardians are made of mechanical parts. Modified jungle edge. The modified jungle edge is a biome in where a jungle borders a swamp hills biome, and it is the rarest biome in the entire game. To put into perspective on how rare this actually is, mushroom islands make up roughly 0.056% of the overworld, whereas a modified jungle edge makes up a mere 0.00027%. Due to a change in overworld terrain generation in 1.18, modified jungle edges have been removed to be merged with regular jungle biomes instead. Zombie virus. There's a theory that claims that an airborne zombie virus has been ravaging the vast majority of the overworld, based on an observation of nether mobs such as piglins and hoglins instantly zombifying by simply being in the overworld. Over time, natural immunities to the zombie virus were developed to varying degrees, like the igloo bunkers from earlier, but not only does this attempt to explain how almost all of humanity was taken out so quickly with Steve still being perfectly fine, but it also explains why most villagers simply die upon being attacked by a zombie rather than turning into one themselves, since they've built up a resistance to the zombification. Wake up. During a livestream where a player named Patamus saw Herobrine in a pool of lava, another streamer named Copeland posted links in chat leading to a really weird website. All that's on the page is a gif of Steve's head with frantically moving eyeballs, as well as a mess of symbols and letters. By connecting only the letters, you get the wake up messages, which say that victims of torture can sometimes retreat into a fantasy world from which they cannot wake up from. Gray Tabby Cat. In Bedrock Edition, the texture file for a gray tabby cat can be found inside of the game files. The texture is completely unused, and the breed can't be spawned in-game. Snooper. Snooper is a feature that Mojang has been using to collect data on users for many years, either by the client or by the server. It was first introduced in July of 2012 with the ability to opt out, but was disabled in 1.13 and then later completely removed in order to comply with the EU's GDPR privacy laws. Snooper was brought back in 1.18, and the claimed reason was to find where the biggest problems in the game were, with no option to opt out. In-Dev House. When players started a map in the in-dev version of Minecraft, their spawn location was always in a 7x7 house made of mossy cobblestone and contained chests filled with a full stack of every block and item in the game, in which stacks also used to be 99 instead of 64. In later versions, the chests were removed, and the houses were updated to be made of planks and of a floor that's made out of stone. 12 Mark 40 Awesome. In 2012, Mojang devs Dinnerbone and Mark Watson were joking on Twitter about a new snapshot that would add volcano biomes as well as fish and coral in the ocean. And as well as the image made for this being an MS Paint joke is, the dev may have unintentionally predicted the aquatic update all the way back in 2012. Alpha Snow Worlds. Before any real biomes were implemented, a winter mode was a randomly occurring map type that would turn the entire world snowy, technically acting as the first biome in Minecraft besides regular plains. It would also freeze over the oceans whenever it would snow. Ruby Dung. I talked earlier about how Notch took the first 2 ever textures for Minecraft from another game he had made called Rubydung, and Rubydung is an unreleased game that Notch had made before Minecraft, heavily based on another game called Dwarf Fortress. The name stood for Rubyland's Dungeons, Rubylands being the game world that Notch envisioned, and the initial reason that the cave game demo was even made was because Notch wanted to try and make a first-person version of Rubydung. China Mob Vote. In 2018, from September 7th to September 20th, Mojang held a vote for players of Minecraft in China to choose their favorite national treasure to make it into the game. The choices were between the giant panda, alligator, golden monkey, white-lipped deer, and the white dolphin. The giant panda won with over 460,000 votes and was announced at Minecon Earth on September 29th. Full block chests. When chests were first introduced during InDev on January 24, 2010, they were considered a solid block, and the block model was shrunk for Beta 1.8 as part of a chest update, which also included an opening animation, proper rotational placement, and generation in mineshafts and strongholds. Mattis Crafting Menu. The Mattis Crafting Menu was a crafting system used by Pocket Edition Alpha, short for Minecraft Advanced Touch Technology Interface System. The menu is pretty similar to the recipe book in modern versions of Minecraft, with a grid of items showcasing what the player can make using the items in their inventory. The menu didn't actually have enough space to show every item when using a crafting table, and as a result, many blocks had to be moved to other crafting blocks. Animal Cruelty. Mojang refused to add the ability to make dolphins rideable, claiming that it was animal cruelty, even though pigs have been rideable for many, many years. Sharks won't get into the game for more or less the same reasons, though it actually makes sense since all hostile mobs currently in the game are fantasy-based. Footsteps. Footstep particles were introduced in Beta 1.5, though it was actually never used. It can still be created with command blocks, but the particle itself was removed in 1.13 due to the flattening that I talked about earlier. Skull Painting Hillseed. The terrain in the background of the skull and fire painting actually comes from a real Minecraft world, which was found by a player named Kminster on September 10th, 2020. The world comes from before 1.1.2, and these 2 seeds both work to give you the world of the painting. Mogminer Minecraft Incident. The Mogminer, also known as Ryan Holtz, was a game developer at Mojang working on the rendering engine for Minecraft, and on December 18th, 2013, Ryan joined an unaffiliated Minecraft server assuming that it was the real one, then promptly released his anger both in the server and on Twitter when he didn't receive his proper donator ranks, since he donated $500 to Guide prior to joining. Chat logs seem to show him swearing at mods and using his Mojang status to demand for server ranks. And sometime around January 2015, Ryan was ultimately fired from Mojang Studios. China Appeasement. Some people speculate that the reason that sharks aren't being added to Minecraft and dolphins aren't being made rideable is in order to appease China, as the Chinese river dolphin is critically endangered, and that by adding sharks to Minecraft, it would only make the situation worse for the species. Alongside the fact that Minecraft China is a free version of Bedrock Minecraft with a whopping 300 million players, it makes sense why Mojang would want to cater to a player base this large. Xperia Play. The first ever release of Pocket Edition was on the Xperia Play via Google Play on August 16, 2011, and an Android version wouldn't come out until October 7th, and Pocket Edition didn't come to iOS until November 17th. Green Shrubs. Shrubs were added in 1.5 with a tinted green color that varied in saturation depending on the biome that it was in, and green ones are gradually phased out starting in 1.8 before being completely removed in 1.13. Mars Effect. Mars Effect is a website Notch made for April Fool's Day of 2012, and the name is intentionally a play on Mass Effect as a reference to Bethesda filing a lawsuit against Mojang for their earlier game Scrolls, which had a similar name to the Elder Scrolls by Bethesda. And if you ask me, that is a stupid-ass reason to sue somebody. Friends List. This is a feature in Pocket and Bedrock Edition that allows players to invite people to servers that the user creates. Chris Gelbring said that he was working on a friends list all the way back in 2013, even though it still doesn't exist in Java. Fartherlands. I mentioned earlier how there are way more Farlands than just the original, and the farther lands are a second set of far lands that generate 80 times further than the first set, generating over 1 billion blocks away from the spawn. There's even further sets of far lands beyond this one, but those lands are so far away that they can't even be viewed in a normal world due to the chunk overwrite limit occurring 34 billion blocks away, meaning that you would have to modify the noise generator in order to see them at all. Rare clay. In Beta 1.6, clay would only generate underwater when the X and Z coordinates were the same, meaning that clay would be incredibly hard to find. In-dev map customization. The in-dev map generation gave players multiple options for maps. Long and deep map shapes would make your world twice as long or twice as high, and besides the normal map theme, you could make a hell map where all of the water was replaced with lava, paradise where beaches were bigger and the plants were more abundant, and lastly, woods, where trees generated much more frequently. There were a couple more map types than this, but these are just the main types of maps that you were able to make. Snow QR code. In 2015, the Love and Hugs update managed to hide a QR code within its version, and going towards the world spawn revealed a patch of land where some blocks would never have snowfall on them, but some of them would. This area eventually formed the shape of a QR code, which when scanned revealed this image, teasing the next major update. Calibrated Skulk Sensor. The Calibrated Skulk Sensor is an unused top and side texture for a block that seems to depict a sensor with an amethyst on the top of it. The block is actually useful in that it can filter which vibration frequency it detects through a redstone signal. Activation patterns. Every interdimensional portal in Minecraft borrows the same pattern of a ring of hard material with heat applied to it to generate the portal. Nether portals are made of obsidian and require a flint and steel, whereas end portals are made of indestructible frames and are positioned above a pit of lava. Even the end gate is made of bedrock and is activated once the dragon explodes onto it. Infinite Lava Source. Back in Endev, a block called the Infinite Lava Source was added to player inventories as well as chests in the Endev house alongside the Infinite Water Source. The blocks would indefinitely spread in every way but up, but if left uncontained, the blocks could replicate to massive amounts. Droopy Likes Her Face. This is a song by C418 that has some rather strange audio samples taken from a text-to-speech reader called the Magic Wand Speak and Learn, which could scan barcodes to read certain children's books out loud, including a book called The Droopy Dragon, which is the book used in the song. Ashes to Ashes. In the 2013 Halloween update, 2 audio files were found in the game files called Ashes 1 Ashes and Ashes 2 Ashes. The first clip seems to be only clicking noises, but the second clip seems to be of a man sobbing. Isometric screenshot. In the in-dev versions of Minecraft, pressing F7 would allow you to take an isometric screenshot of the map, rendering mobs as well as any changes that were made to the world. There were a couple of bugs with this though, and for one, the player could only be rendered if you were in third person beforehand, and blocks were only rendered if they were in your field of vision. Nothing to solve. There's a hidden book in the llama dimension in the Infinity update that only says nothing to solve. Zero tick farms. Zero tick pulses were a bug that allowed a redstone signal to turn on and off in the same tick. A simple way to make a zero tick machine would have been to have a repeater powering a block and a comparator activating a piston to move the block, depowering it in the process. Since comparators are prioritized after repeaters, the output will first turn on and then off, all in the same tick, and when activating a piston using a zero tick pulse, pushed blocks are essentially teleported instantly, which also allowed dirt to be moved under crops without them popping off. This could have been exploited for farms, and Minecraft's code for crops contained a single procedure that both determined when to go to the next growth stage, as well as check if the block under it is dirt. And by using a zero-tick piston to constantly move dirt blocks under these crops, the check procedure occurred but was tricked into going to the next growth stage, thus making incredibly fast farms. While farming with zero-tick machines was patched in 1.16, the tick machines themselves still work. Shadow Seeds. Every single world seed in Minecraft Java Edition has a shadow seed, which is pretty much a second seed that shares the exact same biome map, but has different terrain generation and different structure locations. Ant Venom's video goes far more into detail than I'm willing to do here. Wool armor. Before leather armor was a thing, cloth armor could be crafted from wool, and the texture for this armor set was taken from one of Notch's earlier games, Legend of the Chambered. 72 Daka accounts. There used to be 72 accounts in Minecraft that all had the same username, which was Daka. All of them except one have since been deleted, and one theory is that Daka stands for Dev Account Quality Assurance, though there's no official explanation for why there were so many of them. Fluff.png. Fluff was a texture that was intended to be used for clouds in InfDev, though it was removed in early alpha and replaced with something else. Lapis-powered statues. Blocks of lapis can be found inside illager heads made of wool inside woodland mansions, but I don't think that it powers anything. I think it's just where they store lapis. Alpha 1.1.1. The 10th and final secret update released by Notch was on September 18th, 2010, simply titled Alpha version 1.1.1. Whereas the previous 9 were released on Fridays, this one was released on Saturday, and the update added sneaking, fishing rods, and new paintings. It was only available for 205 minutes as a result of a one-line bug causing the screen to go gray as a result of gamma and contrast values being set to 0, and was quickly fixed with a patch. The update is notable for having no known archives, up until Twitter user Luna Sorcery provided an archived .jar file that they somehow managed to find. Minecraft 4K. Minecraft 4K was a version of Minecraft made in December 2009 for the 2010 Java 4K contest, which challenged programmers to make a game using just 4 kilobytes of data, also known as 4096 bytes. For reference, Java Edition in its current state is around 180 megabytes, and in the 4K version, there's only 6 blocks, which are grass, dirt, stone, bricks, leaves, and wood. Southeast Rule. Also known as the ZX rule, since south denotes positive Z changes and east denotes positive X changes, this is an unintentional mechanic where choices made by the game favor the south or east directions. When placed at an intersection causing them to curve, rails will curve to the south or the east. Any mob initially spawned into the world, including the player, will always face south. TNT cannons fire farther on average while facing east or south, and a bug often led to villagers cramming into the same house on the southeastern part of the village. Levers placed on the floors of ceilings will initially point towards the south or east, and before beta 1.6, dispensers used to shoot through solid blocks in the south or west directions until it was patched. Exploding arrows. In the documentary Minecraft: The Story of Mojang, Notch shows off his ability to debug Minecraft's code while playing the game at the same time. And in that same scene, he also manages to code in exploding arrows for fun. Exploding arrows aren't a feature planned to be added into the game, although you can kinda do it by shooting fireworks out of a crossbow, but even then it's not really planned. Elytra origins. Elytra is the term for the hardened forewings commonly found on bugs such as beetles that cover the actual wings, though they can still be used for gliding. The wings in Minecraft may have rotted away due to how delicate they are, leaving only the outer shell. Phantoms may be the evolved version of whatever the elytra is from, since the wings can be repaired with phantom membranes. With that being said though, that would then mean that phantoms are real and not hallucinogenic. In the Infinity update, there's 2 files called banana.ogg that are high-pitched versions of the sound used in the title screen for Mojang's intro. It's found in a folder called Nothing to See Here, Move Along. Vexes are corrupted allays. Allays are legless blue spirit themed mobs, incredibly similar to Vexes right down to the texture of their wings, but the only big difference is that allays are passive whereas Vexes are hostile. One could speculate that Vexes are a result of evokers capturing and corrupting allays for their own gain. Stabby McStabface. The isolation dimension of the Infinity update is home to a single villager named Bob and his 3 dogs with red, green, and blue collars. Signs placed outside his house say, "No advertisement please," in Swedish, and a hidden chest underneath his home contains rotten flesh, bones, and a sword named Stabby McStabface. Look, I'm not a forensics expert, but I think Bob might have murdered somebody. Unused chair texture. Notch's old blog showed that he intended to add chairs to Minecraft alongside doors, ladders, and signs, and textures for the chair were also added in the files for one side view and front view, but the textures were later removed. Skis.png. In December of 2012, a texture for a pair of skis were added in Update 1.4.6 as a joke addition by the developers. They were referenced by Dinnerbone on Twitter, though he also implied that the skis were simply a joke and not meant to be taken as a serious addition. Early mob designs. Throughout Minecraft's history, Mojang revealed several prototype designs for mobs that didn't make the cut. Pillagers are going to look like pirates at first, with eye patches and tattered orange clothes. Ravagers were originally called Illager beasts, boasting far taller legs as well as completely blank eyes. Bees were originally much smaller than they are now, and had a much more realistic appearance. And when phantoms were first being introduced, they kept the design they had in the mob vote teaser, and they even had a mouth, and were originally going to be red instead of blue, but the mob to go through the biggest changes was by far the Strider. Striders originally looked like completely different mobs. They originally had 9 legs and looked like this, before having 6 legs, and then having 2 legs and completely changed to be what they look like now. Alex's glasses. When Alex was first added to the game, a hidden Alex face with glasses on was hidden in the texture file as a reference to Jeb. Dungeons and levers. When Minecraft was still in the alpha stage, Notch said that he wanted to make an adventure mode, and this is what he came up with. Unlike the modern adventure mode, Notch hinted at 4 players competing in a hardcore mode, making it a roguelike, and having a quest system with randomly generated maps, but this was obviously all never added. Steve is a god. How is Steve able to carry so much in his inventory without losing speed? How can he jump a whole meter effortlessly and run almost twice as fast as the average person like it was nothing? Why is he the only one of his kind in this world? And how can he go from absolutely nothing to defeating an ender dragon in the middle of space? And most importantly, how the hell can he punch wood? Rescue a ghast from the Nether. The wording from the description of the Uneasy Alliance advancement makes it sound like ghasts are involuntarily trapped in the Nether, or that they don't belong there. Flower Forest Gradient. Every block in a flower forest can only have a specific type of flower on it when spawned using bone meal, and oddly enough, these don't match the flower pattern that's on world generation. Instead, the bone meal pattern seems to be following Perlin Noise, which is a popular random noise generator for creating terrain, though Minecraft uses fractal noise for its worlds instead. For plains and sunflower plains, a more subtle gradient occurs, with some blocks only allowing tulips to spawn, while others only allow non-tulips to spawn, creating a pattern of tulips and not tulips. Worlds have 7 seeds. When trying to break a Minecraft seed, AntVenom found out that Minecraft actually stores 7 different seed files, all based on different aspects of the world itself. Examples include a different seed file for the biomes, the structures, and 3 of the files being for one sole dimension. And upon this discovery, Minecraft worlds technically have 7 different individual seed sections, and they can be altered just as much as any other file, and the results are insanely cool. AntVenom's video goes into more detail on this, but I'm going to leave the entry at that. Debug.png. Added during Java 1.9, Debug.png shows a rainbow gradient behind a lattice of black dots, whereas the other texture named Debug2 depicts the symbols N, M, 3, and S over red, green, blue, and yellow gradients. The textures were unsurprisingly used for debugging purposes, and for instance, Debug.png was used as the dust particle texture for bubble columns. By falling just on the edge of a block near a bubble column, or by pushing said column with a piston, the debug texture in the form of particles should be visible. Hollow World. Despite being 8 times the size of the Earth, the Minecraft player doesn't experience 8 Gs of force. In fact, gravity is arguably less than it is on Earth, explaining how Steve can effortlessly jump meter-high blocks and run without getting tired. The reason for the reduced gravity is most likely because a vast majority of the world is actually hollow, and that the distance to the center of the Earth is 6,300 kilometers, but the distance from Minecraft's sea level to bedrock is a mere 62 meters. The void may not actually be a bottomless pit, but instead a large expanse of darkness in the middle of a massive artificial planet. Triple chests. In Beta 1.1, when placing another chest vertically adjacent to an existing double chest, the chest in the middle would gain a corrupted GUI but a fully working expanded storage. This could be repeated 2 more times to create a cross shape of 5 chests, with the middle chest having 5 times as much storage as a regular single chest, but the size of the GUI made it impossible to put anything inside of it. The bug was patched in Beta 1.5, and though you couldn't create new ones, the old bug chest would still work. Zombie Town. Zombie Town is a game that Notch created in October of 2009, and it was meant to be a sequel to Left 4K Dead, which was one of his other ones. The only footage of the game shows humans frolicking around in an empty field, and it's likely that the zombie texture may have came from this game, considering that the people running around are clearly Steve's. Minecraft 4D. In April of 2010, Notch planned on releasing a video of Minecraft 4D for April Fools, but couldn't due to him moving into a new house. And as for what that might have looked like, well, we might never know. Mountains and Oceans. When Oceans and Mountains first came out, they were treated as structures, breaking up other true biomes whenever needed. They weren't actually made into real biomes until the Beta 1.8 pre-release on September 9th, 2011. Pumpkins contain souls. There's a theory that the reason that snow golems and iron golems immediately come to life after placing a pumpkin on their heads are because they're imbued with souls, or at the very least contain some sort of soul energy. All naturally spawning pumpkins prior to 1.13 had faces carved into them as well, which could also suggest that they're much more than just regular pumpkins. Green eyes. I mentioned this earlier, but Endermen originally had green eyes when they were first added to the game, but during Beta 1.8 pre-release 2, their eye color was changed from green to purple. Mineshafts ignore ores. Even though the main purpose of a mineshaft is, well, for mining, all of them seem to completely ignore the ores around them. This suggests that these tunnels weren't created for collecting resources, and that they may have been used for transportation, or possibly to quickly hide from an unknown danger on the surface. Steve Villager Hybrid. After villagers were added, a texture file could be found in the game files that seemed to combine the skin of Steve with the body of a villager, and the texture file was later removed in Update 1.5. Sarge's QR codes. A series of 1.9 teaser screenshots by Sarge included 5 hidden fragments of a QR code hidden throughout the images, and when putting it together, it revealed a Steam code for indie game The Movie. Ghost blocks. For several versions of Minecraft up until 1.13, certain redstone contraptions involving slime blocks would allow glitched client-only ghost blocks to be formed infinitely. These blocks break instantly and drop nothing, and are considered non-existent by the server, but are visible and even able to be collided with by the player until they reload their game. This made for some interesting mob-proof bridge applications until it was patched, although it saw a short return in 1.15 with honey blocks and again in 1.17 with powdered snow. Human mobs. In the pre-classic versions of Minecraft, there was a spawnable version of Steve who were referred to as monsters in the game's code. They would flail their arms up in the air when walking, and in later versions, they even had the ability to attack the player. Block 36. Also known as piston_extension, this block is a side effect of storing moving blocks as tile entities rather than regular ones. It can be acquired through using commands and placed, and when placed next to another block in the world, it appears pure black, but otherwise it's fully transparent and has no collision. The block is also indestructible by left-clicking, but right-clicking instantly removes the block. 0x10c. In as early as 2012, Mojang had a follow-up game to Minecraft called 0x10c, and the game was intended to be some sort of space trading sim. 0x10c denotes a hexadecimal number equal to 16 to the power of 12, which is how many years had passed since 1998 in the game's story. Obviously, this game was never released, and the game was put on hold and then cancelled a year after it first began its development. Unused ghast scream. Ghasts have a sound called Affectionate Scream that was added in 1.1 but was never used. The sound is much more high-pitched than other cries, and this is what it sounds like. Wandering traders are nitwits. The undershirt of a wandering trader is green, matching that of a nitwit's shirt. It's likely that some nitwits left their villages to find their true calling, selling exotic goods from rare locals, but it's also likely that their poor trades may be a result of laziness or below average intelligence. It's also possible that they may be scam artists, but that assumes that a nitwit is even smart enough to try that. Obsidian walls. During InfDev, there was a once 2-block high obsidian structure that generated along X and Y axes. It only existed from February 27th to March 13th, 2010, and it's honestly really cool looking. Ghasts are mechanical. According to a diagram in the Mobestiary, ghasts have an internal mechanism that allows them to shoot fireballs as opposed to them being generated without the use of technological features. Entity.hanging. Entity.hanging is a sound file that was added in the 49th snapshot for 1.9, but was later removed for unknown reasons. This file was most likely originally intended to be the sound file for leads when they were placed or broken, but the most likely answer was that the sound files were probably just not really needed in the game, and so the files were removed by Mojang. Metal ores dropped metal blocks. Iron and gold were added on October 24, 2009, in the 0.26 survival test build of Minecraft. They originally dropped 1 to 3 blocks, since actual ingots weren't implemented until way later, and additionally, coal ore used to drop 1 to 3 stone slabs instead of any coal whatsoever. Brown spiders. While spiders were in development for their release in the 0.26 survival test, they originally had a brown texture instead of black like they do now. The color change from brown to black actually happened roughly 28 minutes before the release of the version because of a suggestion by user Zion on the TIG source forums to make the texture black instead. Bedrock debug builds. In the Windows 10 and 11 edition of the game, UWP debug builds of the game exist with a wide variety of technical shortcuts in F3 displays. Although these builds are generally kept secret, they're periodically given out to marketplace developers in order to test out content. Futuristic tech. We talked about this earlier as well, but the text for the enchantment table is actually the standard galactic alphabet, suggesting that it's some sort of futuristic technology. Early creeper behavior. When creepers were first introduced on September 1st, 2009, they simply hopped around randomly until they spotted the player, delivering 4 hearts worth of damage on contact. They didn't explode until they were killed, and it wasn't until InDev on February 4th, 2010 that their behavior was changed into the one that we all know and love. White Enderman. The concept of White Enderman gained popularity when a creepypasta emerged of an Enderman with inverted colors chasing a player and avoiding death in absurd ways until eventually permanently killing the player despite the world not being in hardcore. And although the creepypasta itself isn't true, White Enderman sightings have been documented as a result of texture issues, since white is often the default color used to substitute for transparent or non-existent pixels whenever they're needed. Help sounds. Some ambient sounds in the Warped Forest biome have the name Warped Forest Help and Warped Forest Here, showing odd Enderman noises and sounds of distress. It's likely that they're attempting to communicate to the player about something, much like they already do with their backward speech, and another piece of ambience is Warped Forest Mood 9, which seems to play back slowed down laughter. Old Root. Old Root is an ARG that started on the Minecraft subreddit in 2014 by a Reddit user with the same name, and the mystery is still unsolved to this day. It was later revealed that Alex Bale was the original creator of the ARG, and he later stated in a Reddit post that he was no longer going to add on to the ARG, and that it's probably never going to be solved anyway. Retro Gaming Now has a full in-depth video on this, and for all we know, the end of the tunnel could just be a troll face or something. Old Dragon Respawn Method. In Snapshot 15W31A of 1.9, before an official way to resummon the Ender Dragon was added, it was possible to respawn the Ender Dragon by making a creeper face out of clay along the north and south axes of the end. Basalt Delta's Radiation. Ambience in Basalt Delta biomes include clicking noises, which sound very similar to the sounds of Geiger counters. The sounds could potentially imply that the biome is radioactive, and the ash particles found in the biome could be some sort of radioactive fallout rather than volcanic ash. The presence of further ambience, explicitly described as being from explosions, possibly nuclear explosions, could also support this theory, although they could also simply be volcanic eruptions. Calm 4. Calm 4 is an upbeat synth tune that was added in alpha version 1.1.1, but removed in 1.1.2. And at around 1 minute and 36 seconds in the song, Notch can clearly be heard saying Mojang specifications, but sped way down. Mojang Specifications was the former full name of Mojang from 2009 to 2010.
Mojang Specifications?
Shared bedrock pattern. In Java Edition, the pattern of the bedrock floor under the overworld is the same in every world regardless of seed, though in Bedrock Edition, it's only the nether ceiling that is consistent. This consistent pattern can be exploited, which has already happened on servers like 2b2t, to pinpoint the coordinates of a base through a picture of just a few blocks of bedrock. As of 1.18 though, the pattern generation of the bedrock layer is now dependent on the world seed instead of being universal. Emerald Sickness. Emerald Sickness is a theory that illagers and pillagers came to be by becoming so greedy for emeralds that instead of sharing them equally, they'd rather kill one another just to have more emeralds than the other. Not too dissimilar from the real world. Death Island. In InDev, creating a world with the map type floating and the map shape deep will spawn you in the air, killing you once you make the impact with the ground, since the generator can't find a suitable place to spawn your starting house. The same bug seems to happen with the island and inland map types as well, and this is now referred to as Death Island. Prototype Creepers. A picture of an early prototype creeper was posted by Notch on August 31st, 2009, and the texture on the model appears to be some sort of desaturated clay or sand, but it's clearly just a placeholder. Birds Screaming. This entry refers to an audio loop that was added into the classic version on May 28, 2009, and it was intended to be played when the player was in a forest. Though forests in real life often have birds chirping, Minecraft didn't have any birds, which was why the feature wanted to be added. Air.ogg. Air.ogg was part of a streaming project by a developer at Mojang named Bach, and using SSTV to convert the sounds into an image, you get this image. The image is a paraphrase that leads you to the 43rd dimension in the Infinity Update, and in this dimension, there is a secret message hidden in grass blocks that includes the sentence, "All these worlds yours, except Europa. Use them together, use them in peace. Europa, the moon sold separately." This is a reference to the alien message from 2010 Odyssey 2. Alpha Slabs and Leaves. Alpha slabs, also called wooden slabs, were an earlier version of wood slabs that existed from beta 1.3.1 all the way up to beta 1.7.10. They were identical to a stone slab in terms of footstep sound and tool required to break them, as well as having invulnerability to fire, except they had the wood plank texture. And as the game updated, Mojang made a new slab called Oak Wood Slab, but left the Alpha Slab ID in the game. And as a result, there were now two identical looking wooden slabs but with different IDs. And in 1.8, the wooden slab shows a missing texture in the inventory. In 1.13, the wooden slab texture was brought back, but the name was changed to Petrified Oak Slab due to its stone slab properties. Alpha Leaves have a similar history, with their texture in the inventory being an abnormally large missing texture block, obtained by starting a beta 1.2 world, grabbing them with a Silk Touch pick in 1.0, and then updating to a later version. In 1.13, Alpha Leaves were converted to regular oak leaves. Guardians are sentient conduits. The heart of the sea isn't a literal heart, but rather an eye. Its item texture depicts closed eyelids, and the effect icon for conduit power depicts the open version of the eyeball with a red pupil. In order to activate a conduit, it must be surrounded by prismarine blocks. What are guardians? A mob with a single red eye surrounded by prismarine. They also don't suffocate out of water, potentially hinting towards them being air-breathing entities with some form of water breathing, possibly an effect provided by conduit power. Bonus chest. In early console editions of Minecraft, the bonus chest generated at the start of the world could be infinitely duplicated by simply breaking the chest and exiting out, and then going back into the world again, where the chest would simply regenerate itself. Steve is an amnesiac. This theory is based on the assumption that crafting recipes and advancements are canon information and are actually the thoughts of Steve himself. At some point during whatever apocalyptic event that caused almost all of mankind to be wiped away, Steve developed amnesia, and over the course of the game, specific events cause him to jog his memory and remember more of the survival skills that he used to possess. One notable instance is how simply going into water unlocks the crafting recipe for boats, even if the player hasn't actually collected wood. Shadow items. Item shadowing is when you have multiple instances of one item in two different locations in the game. Originally found out by trying to find a way to dupe items, one way to make a shadow item is by putting a comparator on an illegal block beside a chest, and by opening the chest and activating the comparator. Since it's on an illegal block, the comparator will just break. And what happens is, when a comparator breaks, it gives block updates 2 blocks away from wherever the comparator is. And so when you do a swap operation, this happens. The diamonds are actually the exact same stack, and the item will go away when trying to pick it back up. This is the most simple explanation I'm willing to give, because we need to move on to other entries. Old smelting method. Smelting was implemented on January 29th, 2010, but furnaces themselves weren't actually added until February 19th. And in the time between then, items such as ores could simply be smelted by throwing them into fire or lava. 1K in 24 hours. To celebrate 1,000 sales in the past 24 hours, the alpha version 1.0.13's title screen logo was changed to 1K in 24H. Alternative redstone. Before redstone was added to Minecraft Pocket Edition, players found ways to create signals using the blocks they had, often using sand and cacti. This is because of a mechanic that forces a cactus to pop off if it's adjacent to another block at any time. So by placing a line of signs on top of the cacti, then putting sand blocks on top of the signs, one could make the sand blocks fall down on demand by placing a block next to the cactus. This basic contraption is useful for making falling sand doors, as well as having the sand blocks trigger yet another cactus signal to create a chain. The wither is imperfect. The current wither is formed with only a few blocks of soul sand and 3 wither skeleton skulls. That really doesn't seem like much to summon what is apparently an incredibly powerful entity, not to mention the fact that the wither is just a floating torso without any limbs. Steve probably doesn't know the proper way to summon the perfect wither, and is instead going off of what the wither painting depicts, and though it's not canon, Minecraft Story Mode Season 1's main antagonist was the Wither Storm, which is a much stronger version of the wither summoned with a command block in the middle of the soul sand. Crater. Before caves were added to Pocket Edition, a seed called Portia generated an incredibly deep crater, complete with a lava waterfall and a lake at the bottom. Glass towers. In order to test the location of generated end portal rooms and strongholds, Jeb used a pair of glass towers that went all the way up to the build height. One marked the entrance of the stronghold, and one marked the location of the portal room itself. And when Beta 1.9 Pre-3 was released, Jeb forgot to remove these debug towers, so they just kinda stayed in the game. They were removed though on October 13th, 2011. Pillagers created piglins. This is a theory that surrounds the idea of piglins being created by pillagers. For one, both have crossbows, and this theory could also explain why regular pigs turn into zombie piglins when exposed to lightning. It's likely that after the pillagers realized the zombie piglins didn't make good servants, they were all likely banished to the Nether. Invisible fire. When fire was first added to Pocket Edition, it was completely invisible, with the only visible thing being the smoke that was coming from the fire. It also had an incredibly high fire spread, and it had the ability to burn up non-flammable blocks such as dirt and stone. Minecraft EDU. Not to be confused with Education Edition, this was an educational version of Minecraft developed by Teacher Gaming on November 5th, 2011. Teacher options were a big draw, as well as a handful of blocks added to limit where students can build, place, and go. Mojang ended up purchasing this in January of 2016, but subsequently discontinued it in April due to Mojang's own education edition being in the works. Cold and Oak. There used to be a rare bug in Pocket Edition that caused any spruce trees at the edge of a snowy biome to take the shape of an oak tree. Its name is probably a reference to golden oak, which is a species of oak tree. Nautilus Theory. This is an outlandish but fascinating theory that adds on to the concept of nautiluses being extinct, suggesting that over time they quickly evolved out of their magical shells to avoid being hunted, and instead went to fill other ecological niches. Some intensified their conduit power and congregated near abandoned circuit buildings, creating a hierarchy system and eventually evolving into the Guardians. Others nestled into cave aquifers, evolving to need less and less water as they relied more on stone and minerals, becoming silverfish. And Nautilus silverfish strongholds with still activated portals fell through to the other side, becoming corrupted endermites. And with the ender dragon now endangered, some populations of endermite evolved to fill the empty ecological niche the dragons once filled, becoming phantoms. Now being capable of teleportation, evolved endermites hopped between dimensions whenever an opportunity came, although this meant that now they could constantly get trapped in certain dimensions. Those stuck in the nether eventually became striders, living in lava pools as a byproduct of descending from aquatic creatures, whereas phantoms were among those who primarily settled down in the overworld. Afrikaans single-player slur. Sometime in around January of 2012, upon switching to the Afrikaans language, players were greeted with, yeah, what? Mojang quickly apologized shortly after, chalking it up to a prankster that abused the translation tool that the game was drawing from. Censored videos. We talked about how Notch created a tech demo for Cave Game on one of his old YouTube channels, but this video, along with all of the other videos on his channel, are blocked in nearly every country for unknown reasons. Thankfully though, all of the videos do seem to be re-uploaded and properly saved. Soul amalgamations. With ghasts being ghost-like mobs, it's interesting to think about what could have been big enough to become a ghast upon death, yet no longer exist in a living form in modern Minecraft. One theory proposes that ghasts aren't actually based on a singular mob, but are simply the runoff of souls produced once soul sand blocks become too saturated. This explains why ghasts have a higher rate in soul sand valleys, and it also somewhat explains the depressed nature of ghasts, as well as clarifying the description of the Uneasy Alliance advancement. White pumpkins. There was a rumor when the Nether update first came out, claiming that soul soil was able to be tilled, producing a new crop called white pumpkins as a nod to Minecraft's story mode. Reactor explosion. Some people believe that instead of ancient debris being ancient trees, the debris is actually the metal scraps from the aftermath of a huge reactor explosion that subsequently gave birth to the Nether dimension, much like the Nether reactor core from the Pocket Edition, but on a much larger scale. If this reactor dealt with nuclear materials, it would also explain the radioactiveness of the basalt deltas. Beacons release souls. Beacons require a nether star to be crafted, found within the core of the Wither. Nether stars on their own are a strange thing to be dropped by this boss, although it makes more sense if one were to assume that these stars are simply the concentrated essence of all the souls that made up the Wither previously. By creating the proper structure, you could break apart this star and release the souls within, sending them upwards towards the afterlife as one large column of light. Beacon effects are a final thank you to those you saved, as a blessing in exchange for an extraordinarily good deed. Data collection. Some people thought that the Trendy update was a way to experiment different ways to test out data collection on players, and that there was even more data outside of the features that were being explicitly displayed to the player, with methods encrypted within its convoluted code. Steve is in a coma. A few parts of Minecraft could point to Steve actually being in a coma over the course of the game and having to face his past. Most of the undead mobs in the game share Steve's face, and he also doesn't dream when he goes to sleep, probably because he's already in one himself. The strongest piece of evidence is the end poem. Besides comparing life as a long dream versus the short dream of the game, the last line of the end credits instructs the player to wake up. The dimensions in Minecraft could also represent different stages of subconsciousness. The overworld is surface-level subconsciousness, where imagination thrives and memories are kept in order, representing the present. The nether represents the traumas and regrets of our past. It symbolizes the chaotic part of our subconscious, housing our fears, instincts, motives, and urges. And the end is the most naive and unknowing part of the mind. It represents the future. Challenging and defeating the Ender Dragon, the final conflict, is what allows Steve to accept his past and move on. The dragon drops an egg, a symbol of creation and rebirth, of getting another chance at life. Steve's sentience. On November 23, 2011, a user by the name of Nate86711 posted a long and somewhat disturbing story on the Minecraft forums. Simply named Steve's Sentience, the post was only up for a short period of time, as it was later taken down due to the nature of its disturbing content. I'm not going to read this out loud, as I want everyone to interpret this in your own way, but one thing I will say is that it is disturbing, and you have been warned. don't look at the moon. This is not exactly about not looking at the moon. It's more about whether or not the moon is looking at you. There is a good chance that there's code that checks whether or not you're looking at the moon, and experiments were made to test it out, with some people having disastrous effects. In the first video on the playlist, he tries to test out whether or not the clock will go crazy when looking at the moon and then blocking the light, but to no avail. In the second video, he tries to test out looking at the moonrise in a cave, but nothing. But in the third video, when trying to enter the end at exactly midnight, something finally happens. Nothing is there. In the next video, he looks at the moon for an entire Minecraft night, and everything seemed normal until it wasn't. And when trying to get back into his world, things get even more confusing. Legend Finder said that when trying to get back into the world after the crash, the world as well as the backup he had made were all corrupted. But notice that in the corner of this video, you might notice something strange. And in the next video, the description simply reads, "This project was never finished. I hope you understand." Come back.